Welcome, everyone. We're going to be talking about Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the first episode, my thoughts, how I think it went. Did they do a good job honoring the story? Did they add anything that was really necessary? Or have they just kiboshed the whole thing? Well, right off the bat, let me just say I give it a 3 out of 10. That's the best I can do. Why am I giving it so low? Number one, they followed the storyline at the very minimum, but it has the beats, it has the points, but it's just that. It's just a skeleton of what was in the book. So that's why I give it the first point. Second point, it looks great. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like the CGI they used, the world, it looks great. There's a few areas where the CGI just doesn't look right, but otherwise it looks somewhat good. Number three, I thought that there were points where they really hit the story well and really made you think like, okay, this is actually representing what's in the books to the show, so I'm giving it that. Otherwise, everything else is a disaster. First mark against it. The characters don't look anything like what they're supposed to in the books. Percy, he doesn't have the black hair that he's supposed to, and he doesn't have the green eyes. Annabeth is just a little black girl. Why is she a little black girl? She should be a white girl with blonde hair. Grover should be a white kid with red hair. Instead, he's an indie boy. They can't get him right, apparently, for some reason. Luke, he doesn't look anything like the dashing man he's supposed to do. Yes, he has this little baby scar there that's it's kind of noticeable if you look, but it's not like this monstrous scar that's kind of hideous. And he doesn't look that handsome. He doesn't look like a handsome 19-year-old guy like in the movies. Like this dude here, this is what Luke should look like. A smoking hot looking 19-year-old that everyone in Camp Half Blood is like, "Damn. Respect to you, man. You're a badass." Um Chiron, he doesn't look anything like him. He's a black dude. He's not a Mediterranean guy. He's just black. Dionysus kind of looks like what I would think of Dionysus, but he still doesn't really look like it. Also, he cares too much about his students, or I shouldn't say students, about his campers. Dionysus doesn't care about anyone in Camp Half Blood. Okay, he does subtly care, as we see in book 4 and 5, but really, honestly, he doesn't at least show that he cares about anyone in this first book. Now, the other areas that also issue for me are the storylines, the story beats. We get this storyline with Percy and his mom at the museum where they're talking about monsters, and his mom's like, "Well, how can you tell that she's a monster just by looking at her?" I would say having snakes coming out of your head is a good idea that you're a monster, okay? Yes, I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to get into a deeper level of like pretty people just because they look pretty can be monsters, and a monstrous looking person can be actually a really good hard gold person. Okay, that's fine, but we're talking about literal monsters here, okay? Medusa was a monster. She was not a good woman. She was a monster. Now, her greatest crime was meeting up with Poseidon, and Athena cursed her to look like Medusa. There's a bit more to the story. I don't know full, so that's fair. But then she would continue on to turn people to stone, becoming more of a monstrous creature. So just more reflecting of what she really was in this more of a creature-esque form. Now let's go into the other major crime that they have at the museum. The other one, and more significant one in my opinion, is the fight between Percy and Mrs. Doss. Now, what's supposed to happen here in the books is Percy pushes the bully into the water fountain, or the water grabs him and brings him into the water fountain, and then Mrs. Doss sees it, and they go into the museum where Mrs. Doss reviews that she's a fairy, and she tries to kill Percy. Versus here, instead of them going into the museum, Percy is outside. He goes over to the bully, and instead of water coming over and grabbing her, he just shoves his hands. No contact, obviously no contact here, and it's just like a force pushes her into the fountain. That's not a power that Percy has. Percy has control over water, so the water should went and grabbed her and brought her in. Couldn't you CGI that? Why couldn't you guys do that? Come on. Lazy, lazy, lazy there. Anyways, Mrs. Doss sees that, and then immediately she starts transforming into the Fury and starts walking towards Percy. None of the other students seem to notice it or seem that it's odd, and she goes right for Percy to kill him. Now, Percy, who just recently got a ballpoint pen from Mr. Brenner for some reason, all of a sudden it starts vibrating and it turns into a sword, and he's able to kill Mrs. Doss with it, completely without any effort. Like, what the heck is this BS? What's supposed to happen is that they go into the museum. Percy and Mrs. Doss are having a bit of a conversation, and Mrs. Doss accuses him of stealing something, that they're hunting him down by the winter solstice or something like that. And then Mr. Brenner comes in, tosses Percy a pen that's been uncapped, and he catches it in the air and then goes and slays Mrs. Doss. Versus this, what the heck is going on here? Like, this is just garbage. Now, I could understand if you're trying to cut the scene down for time, but we have 43 minutes with a whole bunch of different CGI stuff going on. You couldn't just do this properly, put this in the museum where Percy would be able to be like, okay, maybe I just went crazy. Maybe this isn't actually supposed to be happening. But no, all we're really getting here is just that Mrs. Dawes, he kills her right in front of everybody, so everybody should notice. But no one does. So something's obviously wrong here. Percy knows he's not crazy, but why isn't everybody paying attention? Because he clearly sees everybody around him. So the whole reason why it took place in the museum is so that the mist could take its place, so that Percy could live in ignorance, because that's how the mist works for demigods. Is as you're getting older, if you become aware of what you are, your scent becomes more noticeable to monsters, attracting more monsters, and then they'll come attack you. And I understand if you didn't want to put that into the show to cut down on time, I understand it. But they didn't cut down on time. It's 43 minutes. You have 43 minutes to properly set this up, to properly explain to us as the audience that the more you become aware of monsters, the more that they'll start hunting you down, the more that you understand who you are, the more that they'll come after you. But no, we didn't get that storyline at all. So that's a major failing on my part. So that's a major failing in my opinion on their part, that they completely mess it up and thus completely mess up on how the mist works and why monsters are coming after Percy. That's a critical point in the show that they really messed up on. Oh, I'm sorry, I completely forgot. Carice. She, you know what? I got respect. They at least made a villain. What would you say? A POC, a black chick. So at least we have that. So at least you're being somewhat even with it. So I guess I gotta give it to you, but not really. Like, honor the characters. Rooker Dorian, Disney. Is it that hard to actually respect the source material? I guess so. I guess you guys don't really care. That's why I'm just gonna say, like, does this sound racist? Fine, I don't care. You're not honoring the characters at all. You're not caring about what they are. You're just changing them as the way that you want. Second, going back to the storyline beats, we don't really get a good conversation with Percy and his mom at the beach when they're talking about his dad and Percy's love for him, and going in deep on it. And it's just not a good conversation. She tries to go in telling Percy that your dad's a god and there's these monsters, and like, they were too heavy-handed. They try to build up Percy's mom. They try to give her more than what she should have had in the story. For example, when we meet up with Sally Jackson back at Percy's apartment with his stepdad, Gabe. Also, Gabe, he doesn't look like what he's supposed to. Gabe is supposed to be like a fat, grotesque, ugly man smoking cheap cigars. We're supposed to immediately be like a visceral take at him. And the guy they show, it doesn't look like a visceral take. I'm sorry. What were we supposed to expect from this dude? He just looks like a normal dude. Like, yes, he's a little bit jerky, but we're supposed to be repulsed by Gabe. And we're not repulsed. And we see Sally Jackson. She doesn't look like the sweet, lovely, gorgeous woman that we have in our minds from the books that is so nice and kind. No, immediately she goes out and has an argument with Gabe right there in front of Percy. Starts shouting and having an argument back and forth. Whereas in the books, she's like all sweet, and she sweetly maneuvers around Gabe and convinces him to let them go on their trip, being very docile. Like, they can't show a docile woman because women need power. She needs power. Like, they didn't show like the true power of femininity that Sally Jackson had, because with her femininity, she was able to convince Gabe to let them go to Mamaha for the weekend and have a little have a little son and mother time that they haven't done for a long time. We don't get that here. It's just kind of a spur of a moment, like, we're going to take your car and we're going to go. Versus in the books, it was, oh, we've been planning this trip out for a while. Gabe thought that she wasn't being serious, but she was, and now they're going off on the trip. Whereas in this, it's just very abrasive. We don't see the sweet woman that Sally Jackson's supposed to be. That's a strike against the characters right there. Also, it's a strike that she tells Percy flat out that your dad was a god. Like, that's not something that he should be learning from his mom. That should be something that he's coming to the grasp of on their way to Camp Half-Blood and in Camp Half-Blood. But we should really be seeing that Percy's mom been wanting to keep him close, protect him from all this, and she should still be finding it hard to talk about this stuff with Percy, even up to the point where she dies, supposedly. But no, we don't get that. We get this more different character, I don't know. And they just love dragging the show out. This show should be only 19 minutes long. Why can't you understand that? Why do you have to drag it out? There's so much filler. This should be a 20-minute show, nice and short. Everything that happened should be condensed into 20 minutes. I completely agree. The first 4 chapters should be in the first episode, but you completely botched that. Also, the fight with the Minotaur, that was botched. That was completely botched. So when Percy and his mom are driving away from the beach home with Grover, the Minotaur is coming up. Percy, we right away see that it's a Minotaur. There's no confusion. There's no horror aspect. There's no like, ooh, what's this monstrous creature that's coming after us? Grover tells us that it's the son of Dionysus. So if we knew our Greek, we know that's the Minotaur. But we really shouldn't know that's the Minotaur right here, right now. We should still be in fear. Instead, we know right away it's a Minotaur. Doesn't look all that menacing from that far away. And also, when they get blasted off the side of the road and are close to Camp Half-Blood, it takes forever. It takes forever for the Minotaur to catch up with them. In the books, he's right on them. He's coming after them. They only have enough time to get out of the car and start hiking up Half-Blood Hill. But in the show, we have 5 minutes of first Sally Jackson talking to Grover. Hey, protect my son. Keep him safe. You know, it's on you. I need you to swear to me. And then she goes to have another 2-minute conversation with Percy. Whereas you should be running up the hill. The Minotaur is coming after you. They did a horrible job with that. Also, one major flaw I have with this is when Grover rats out Percy. Grover would never do that, okay? Grover is a coward, yes. Grover is scared, but he defends Percy. He is strong for Percy. Percy is his best friend. But in this show, we show that Percy's being brought in by the principals, and they're questioning him on his actions that they took against Nancy Bobofit. And Percy says, like, I didn't push her. And then Grover just goes ahead and says, like, yeah, he pushed her. He should be expelled. Like, what kind of man is that? What kind of good friend are you? Like, I would never want to see you again. But here he does. He shows up at their beach house informing Sally that, yeah, hey, there's something coming from behind me. Hey, we should be slow. We shouldn't worry. You know, just take it easy. There's no rush. Like, in the books, it's rush, rush, rush. This thing is coming after us. This is a force of nature. It's going to kill us. In this show, it takes them so long to get greeted and then into the car. Whereas in the books, it doesn't take that long. Like, why? Why do you have so much filler? The only reason for all this filler is that you want to pad out your episode. Also, you have to make Camp Half-Blood a safe space. Place that a sanctuary city, if you will. That they literally say it's a sanctuary place, it's a safe place. Like, you could just say it's a place for demigods to go where they'll be safe from monsters. Or there's a camp that your father wanted me to send you, but I didn't want to send you there because I guess I was selfish. I wanted to keep you near because if you go to this camp, I might never see you again. Like, how hard is that? How hard is it just to say that? Like, you don't need to go into this long explanation. You don't need to go like, oh, my feelings here or there. You can just be like, I love you so much, Percy, that I want to keep you near. What's hard about that? It was just such a disappointment of a series so far. I'm just going to be honest with you. The second episode, not even better. It's just as bad. And I guess what we're expecting. It's modern deisms inside Disney show, and the characters are just whiny. That's the thing. Like, I found Percy to be so whiny throughout all of this. Yes, Percy's a little bit whiny, but not as much as what they show in the show. They were like, oh, he's so fragile. He's so fragile. Like, Percy's not that fragile. Percy gets into fights. He gets into fist fights. He's a little bit of a troublesome kid. But he just kind of made him look pathetic. And you're like, Carl, you do realize that this is a kid's book for children. Yes, I know. But I grew up with this. This was my books. This is my fantasy series that I grew up with. And I see this as a major disrespect to the characters. Now, if you disagree with me, that's fine. I look forward to hearing you guys in the below section about why I'm wrong. But as far as I can tell, I completely reject this. From this first episode, I reject everything that comes after this. This is a disrespect to the fans. This disrespect to the books. It's just garbage. Give me you know what? I would say the Percy Jackson movies are fine compared to this. Nothing that I've seen here represents what I read in the books. Yes, you have elements. Yes, you have storylines. Yes, you have people name these characters, but they don't act the way that those characters act. They don't have the storylines that those storylines had. You were just completely messing things up to make your own characters look awesome. Especially Sally Jackson. The complete destruction of her character and changing her into something that she wasn't just annoys me. I'm sorry, that's my honest opinion. Now, if you guys disagree with me, as I said, leave a comment down below. Otherwise, I guess I would like to ask you to leave a like and subscribe and reach me on the next video because this is going to be fun, guys. We get to see the destruction of another childhood franchise right here. And the unfortunate thing is the author approves this. This is backed by the author, and he wants it to be like this. This is all on Rick Riordan. And don't come at me like, oh no, Rick Riordan doesn't want this. This is on Disney. No, he played a big part of this. Rick Riordan is definitely behind a lot of these changes, and he's all for it. And I'm not. So, bye. Let me know what you think below, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.